everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do something new. So I have this little Christmas cactus, also known as a Thanksgiving cactus, and I am running out of room on my windowsill, the only place I get sunlight. So I am going to make him hang in the window with a hanging pot, and then I can get more plant babies on my windowsill. So that is what we're going to do today, is make a macrame hanging pot.
But before we get started, I have to tell you, this is my first time doing macrame. We are going to start with paracord because I didn't have any macrame cord lying around. This was my first mistake. The paracord was not ideal. To figure out the length of cord you're going to need, you're going to run the cord down and around the planter. Add 40 inches to that length and double the whole thing. This length is a little arbitrary because it all depends how long you want your macrame section to be. I actually forgot to double the whole length. I melt the ends of my cord so that they don't unravel. Now we're going to cut 3 more lengths of paracord, the same length as the first. Melting the ends as we go. Since I cut my first cord too short, all the rest are going to be too short as well. I decided to go with a pretty simple design as I hadn't done macrame before. So I line up all the cords together and fold them in half. I tie a big knot at the very top, and this will create a loop for us to hang the planter on. You can pull all the individual strands so they sit evenly in the knot. Taking 2 strands that are roughly beside each other, I pick a spot about halfway down and tie a knot. I continue to pair them up and knot them at about halfway, trying to match them up as close as possible. Instead of eyeballing it, I should have used the planter and positioned it where I wanted it to sit. That way, I would know where I needed the knot to be. I pair them up again with the strands there beside, and tie another knot. And we repeat this again with all the adjacent strands, trying our best to line up the knots at the same heights. The last step is to do a big knot at the bottom. Unfortunately, I tied my second row of knots too low, so I didn't have enough paracord to tie a knot. This is when I realized I forgot to double the whole length of cord. So I decided to do 1 more row of knots in hopes that it would create a small enough opening that my planter wouldn't fall through. Lather, rinse, and repeat. Let's pop the planter in. Now we see what it looks like with the planter in it. Since realizing all of my mistakes, I wasn't expecting much out of this. So when it actually held the planter, I was kind of surprised, but not happy with the look. So I decided to try again.
1 more time.
Because I was now an expert, I decided to go with a harder design. So as not to waste it, I used the same cord as before, and once again, forgetting that I needed to double the length. I found a gold ring in my craft stash and decided to use that as my hanging hardware. I threaded the ring onto the cord. So apparently it's bad luck to wear gold and silver together, and gold ring, silver planter, I'm fine, right? Literally moments after I said this, my downstairs neighbors started vacuuming and I couldn't record. With a shorter length of cord, lay it on top of the other cords with the end above the ring. Loop the other end up, and when you get to the ring, wrap underneath. Continue wrapping around for whatever length you want or cut length for, but make sure you don't completely wrap over the loop at the bottom, because the bottom end needs to go through the loop. Then we'll pull on the top end, which will pull the bottom and the loop inside the wrapping we just made. After struggling with the paracord for a little bit, I finally got it in. You can pull on both ends at the same time to tighten your wraps. And once you're happy with the placement, then we can cut off the remainder of the 2 ends. I decided to do square knots at the top. But to do that, you need 8 pieces of cord, and I was only using 4. So I cut 4 more to the same length. Because I didn't want to start over, I figured out this method instead. I folded it in half and put the center point behind 2 strands. Then we do the first half of a square knot. You make a right angle with the right side and weave the left side under the 2 middle strings and over the right. Then take the right end and put it under the left side. Pull the left and right tight and push the knot to the top of the middle strands. Then we do it all over again. Right on top, left under the middle and over the right, and then the right tucks in. Pull tight. I did that again and again until I was nearing the end of my outer strings. What I didn't realize is I was only doing half of a square knot. In order to do a full square knot, you start the knot with the right side, and then to do the second half, you start with the left side. But because I continued to start with the right side, I was just continually doing half knots, which is why it created this lovely twist. I may not be doing it right, but at least I'm learning something new. When I was basically at the ends, I tied a knot around the center cords. I trimmed off the excess and melted the ends. Then I did it again for all the other sides. So with the hard part done, we're going to try and do the same design we did the first time with the knots. I bring in my planter to size up where I want my knots. I'm learning from my mistakes. And just like in the first part, we're going to tie a knot at 2 adjacent strands. And do the same thing all the way around. Once again, measuring with my planter, I'm going to figure out where I want the next row of knots. Do those all up. And test the fit again. I somehow have enough length this time to do 1 more row of knots. I decide to finish it off all fancy-like by doing the same method we did at the top. We're going to lay a smaller piece on top, create a loop at the bottom, from underneath wrap all the way around, tuck the bottom end through the loop, pull the top strand to hide the ends in the wraps. The struggle is real. Cut off the ends, and you're done. I know I said I was a master, but I decided, just in case, to reinforce my knots with fabric glue. Now to set up the planter for my Christmas cactus. I lined the bottom with small rocks. This is called a false bottom. It creates a place for excess water to sit so it doesn't saturate the soil and drown your plant. Then I filled it up with potting soil. I pulled my cactus out of his old pot. Massaged the roots and put him in his new home. Then filled up the sides with a little bit more potting soil. Let's pop him in his new home. And here's where he lives now. Because once again, I made it too short, I added an extra line to hang him lower. My biggest lesson I learned from this project is to just start with a super long piece of cord. And if you end up with too much, you can always cut it off. But it's a lot harder to add more in. I'm glad I kept going, no matter how many mistakes I kept making.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it didn't turn out exactly how I planned it, and there was a few hiccups along the way, but we made a macrame hanging pot planter thing in the end, and it's great. It looks awesome. I'm happy with it, even if it was interesting to make. Well, we'll see you guys on the next video. Bye!